Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching today's YouTube video, you've probably seen the Season 2 finale, and of course it goes without saying there are going to be spoilers in the video, and also there was a big spoiler in the thumbnail, and no, I'm not going to apologise for that, because it's better to be broken to you suddenly than when you're sitting there, because otherwise you will want to die. Okay, so we open on the cliffhanger, and we actually find out that Anita from Joy to the World rescues the Doctor through the Time Hotel. We then find out Anita's actually been searching for the Doctor since they left each other. She's been using the Time Hotel to try and search for him, and we see her in iconic locations in the Doctor Who universe, including with the 11th Doctor and the 3rd. We also found out the Time Hotel is key to restoring the memories before the wish. That's exactly what happens. The Doctor uses the Time Hotel doors to restore everybody's memory, and then the Rani shows up. We have a really pretty decent interaction between Mel and the Rani here. Then we have one with Ruby and Belinda with Mrs. Flood, and that's played off really well, to be fair. We also found out that when all the Time Lords were killed, it actually made it so any surviving Time Lords couldn't reproduce. And honestly, I think that's such a unique concept, something that I can really get behind, and just adds to the tragedy of that whole event, and I think it's something that works really well here. Then the two runners go back as they prepare for the arrival of Omega. Now we also found out that during this time, that if Conrad's wish gets reverted, Poppy, the Doctor's daughter, and Belinda's daughter will disappear. Which of course is even more heightened because we know the Doctor can't actually have a kid, so this is the only possible way for him to. But of course, the wish has to be reverted, so they build a big box and put Belinda and Poppy in there and just kind of leave them there for the rest of the episode. It's really weird how they sideline Belinda here, how she just becomes immediately a mother and they just stick her in this box. She does nothing. I don't like how they did that, but again, this is just a gripe that I had with the episode. It doesn't affect the overall episode. So then the Doctor goes off as these big bone monsters are attacking Unit, and it's a pretty big like CGI type battle. The Doctor goes to face the two Ranis. Ruby has a really good interaction with Conrad to try and get him down so that she can reverse the wish, and this scene is done amazingly. I think it's very clear from this that Ruby was always meant to be the main protagonist here. She was meant to be the main companion because they just sideline Belinda and she gets to shine, which I feel really bad for Belinda's characterization. It's horrible. But Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday here really prevails. She gets a lot to do, and she stars. So then the Doctor's there with the two Ranis as they await for the arrival of Omega, you know, the big threat. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you, up until this point, I was thoroughly enjoying the episode. I was sitting there with my dad in the cinema, really enjoying myself. And then they did this. They made Omega a giant CGI bone-like creature. They did what everybody was memeing and thinking that they wouldn't do. They wouldn't do another Sutek. And at least with Sutek, it made 10 times more sense than doing it with Omega. They ruined the characterization of Omega here. Why? And I'm not kidding, the big CGI Omega picks up the Rani, the new Rani, and swallows her whole and kills her. No, I'm not kidding. Why they thought to make Omega this giant CGI creature instead of just a regular, intelligent, interesting Time Lord and have a brilliant dialogue between the Rani, the Doctor, and Omega is beyond me. And then they made it 10 times worse by having this big CGI Omega just be a giant monster who then eats the Rani. The one positive is Anita Dobson's version of the Rani picks up the other version of the Rani's bracelet and manages to escape. Meaning that there is a version of the Rani still out there, and it's Anita Dobson, so we might see her return in the future, or the Rani come back. Although I think the character is ruined now. Then the Doctor lasers giant Omega in the face, pushes him back into the Underverse, and then the wish falls apart. Don't worry, because Poppy is still alive for all of 5 minutes before she disappears. And Ruby is the only one who can remember Poppy, so she has to convince everyone, including the Doctor, about Poppy, the Doctor's child. And the only way apparently to solve this is for the 15th Doctor to regenerate to break reality. Look, I'm sad that Ncuti Gatwa is leaving the show. I'm devastated. I loved his rendition of the Doctor, and I'm sad we don't get to see him more. I'm sad we don't get to see him face the Daleks or anybody else. It's devastating. But I'm glad that they've done it so he goes out sacrificing himself to save another. That's a very Doctor thing. It doesn't come off as, you know, he wouldn't do this. It comes across as, yes, of course the Doctor would do this. And as he's about to, the TARDIS flashes up images of the previous Doctors to our current Doctor before Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor appears to him. They have a really good interaction, and there's a really good joke about it always being David Tennant who comes back as the Doctor, but now we've got the 13th Doctor coming back. And they have a really lovely scene, and it plays off the regeneration really well and leading up to that, and this idea of love, and, you know, he says to her that he loves her, and she remarks about how she should say that to Yaz, and, you know, Ncuti Gatwa's doctor breaks it to her that she will never say that, but she knows, and it's a really lovely scene. People will complain about this because it's Jodie Whittaker, but it was a top tier scene. Up until this moment as well in this episode, yes, there were issues. I don't like how they characterized Belinda, how they put her in a box, literally just put her in a box. That's gotta be like some deep dark joke or something. The fact that Omega was teased and he was there for 5 seconds as a big CGI monster before just getting pushed back through a hole, that's unfortunate. Or that Anita teased, you know, the boss. Something that was teased by Beep the Meep another Doctor ago. But up until that point, I was enjoying the episode. It would have been a pretty solid one for me. It would have probably been maybe a 7 out of 10, you know, not the greatest, definitely got a few flaws there that I'm very much not happy with, like Omega, but it was a decent episode of the show. Even how Ncuti Gatwa was going out was great. The Jodie Whittaker scene was amazing, and I can really get behind why the 15th Doctor was leaving the show. It just made sense to me. So then the Doctor does this whole regeneration thing, and it breaks reality. It breaks this whole new weird adjacent wish type reality, and we get to see Poppy. I don't know why the whole outside world just fucking hates me today, but, you know, it just won't shut up. Sorry for the noise. The Doctor looking at his hand that is still regenerating, and he says, no, not yet. And then we get this interaction between him, Belinda, and Poppy, where we find out that Poppy isn't the Doctor's daughter, and is Belinda's daughter. We get this amazing, beautiful speech to Belinda in this interaction, and it's amazing. Again, up until this point, genuinely beautiful, and why he's regenerating, again, I can really get behind. And then the Doctor flies away in his TARDIS, and he doesn't want to regenerate alone, so he opens the doors, so he's never alone. He's with the universe, he's with everyone there, and yeah, he starts to regenerate. We say goodbye to Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor already. Honestly, the episode should have ended on the shot of the back of his head, him regenerating. I could have got behind that. I think that would have been a really good cliffhanger. It would have left me wanting to see who the Doctor regenerates into for the next series of the show. I think that would have been masterful, and honestly, this would still be a solid episode in my books. Would have lots of flaws. Would be me having questions like, where is Susan? Why did they hype up Susan for her not to be in this episode or mentioned whatsoever? That's frustrating. Omega, that's frustrating, but it would have been a solid episode with a great ending. But no, it just doesn't end there. You get a really good close-up of Ncuti Gatwa's face, the 15th Doctor as he regenerates, as we see Billy fucking Piper. And look, up until that point, my cinema had cheered, had clapped for other things, alright? So like Anita being in previous Doctor episodes, that got a clap. Jodie Whittaker's got a massive round of applause and people being really happy. This got people fucking screaming at the screen. I'm not gonna lie, I just kind of sat there with my mouth wide because this had leaked. Lots of people were saying, because of leaks, that Billy Piper would be here. Ncuti Gatwa would regenerate into Billy Piper. I honestly didn't believe it. My dad had said about it as I went in. I went, look, that is ridiculous. That's of course not going to happen. I genuinely think that's one of the theories that they've just kind of put out all there to distract people. But no, it was an actual leak. It was an actual thing that was happening. Look, I have absolutely zero idea if Billy Piper will be the 16th Doctor, as it didn't say on screen, like, introducing Billy Piper as the Doctor. It just said introducing Billy Piper, and, you know, this article also kind of, like, skirts around it. So it's very possible that this is not the Doctor, and this is the moment, or some other Time Lord shenanigans, and not the Doctor. I pray it's not the Doctor. Because if it is, I just don't know how they do that. I don't know how the show goes forward beyond that point. It feels like it's always relying on the past, and if it just had ended on the back of Ncuti Gatwa's head as he regenerated, that would have been fine. I would have been happy with that. I would have been fine waiting 2 fucking years to find out, but now we're gonna have to wait 2 years to find out if Billy Piper's the Doctor or not. So regardless if she is or not, that's just left a sour taste in everybody's mouth. Look, in the past, lots of people have said that this is the thing that has changed Doctor Who forever, or this is the thing that has ruined the show. I think this might actually be it. I'm not somebody who throws that around, right? Like, lots of people say when Jodie Whittaker or Ncuti Gatwa were there because they're misogynistic and racist. But there's just no excusing this. This is just incredibly poor writing. An incredibly poor choice. It feels like it's also mocking the show. The fact that this all leaked as well. Basically, the whole series leaked, right? All the plot points. It's a mess. All of this is just a huge, gigantic fuck-up. Of course, I've got to let this settle with me. But basically, everything up until Billy Piper gets on screen, I'm decent with, right? There are lots of things that I'm very disappointed with. Omega. The fact that Susan's not there. We don't get a lot of answers to things like breaking the fourth wall. We just don't get answers to that whatsoever. What they do with Belinda's characterization and how they just shove her in a literal box. Again, I can't get over that. It's insane. But I didn't mind the episode. I thought what they did with Shutikawa and why he has to regenerate and Jodie Whittaker was amazing. That was some really great stuff. And then they ended it with that. I honestly don't know. I would love to hear what you, the viewer, has to say about this. Please feel free to comment down below. I'm still stunned. It seems like the reaction is very one way, and this is dreadful. This is like the worst thing ever. But, you know, there were people in my cinema screening who were crying because they were so happy that Billie Piper was there. So, look, it might be a positive, it might be a negative. In my eyes, this is a huge negative. But I would love to hear what you, the viewer, has to say. And of course, if you enjoyed this, that's great for you. I'm glad you got some type of enjoyment out of seeing maybe Billie Piper come back and you're excited for that. That's really good. I'm really excited for the War Between the Land and the Sea. We got a clip of that, a preview, and that looks stunning. It looks really gritty, down to earth, and what I want from Doctor Who. Looks amazing. But everybody watching, I've been your host Samuel. Hope you enjoyed the most recent episode of The Reality War, and I'll catch you in the next video. Goodbye.